Hello, it's me, Robin, with Simple Food, Simple Life. Today I'm going to try an experiment, and I thought maybe you would like to be a part of it. Now, if it works, you'll see it. If it doesn't work, you'll see it. Okay, I'm going to attempt to make yeast stretch. I've been thinking about this, so I'm going to give this a try. Now, here is the yeast packets. I just picked these up at Aldi. And this is a fast rising instant yeast packet. I think these are like 3 packets for, I don't know, 90-some cents. I think that's what it is. So, what I did this morning was I took a yeast packet, and it's rapid rise, so you don't really have to proof it, but this is what I did. See, stick with me here. I have this plate over this bowl because the lids deteriorate after so many years. Then you end up with a bowl with no lid, right? That's great. Okay, so what I have here is yeast. It's a yeast packet that has proofed. Okay, and this is what I added to this. I added 1 cup of warm water, just tepid, just warm. 2 tablespoons of sugar, and the yeast packet, and 2 tablespoons of flour from my special broken tablespoon. Okay, anyway, that's what I did, and I just covered it up with this plate and set it up on top of my microwave, just on the top to get it out of the way, and just let it proof. So it's actually been up there for a good hour. So, what I'm going to try to do is, I'm going to, since I know that this is good active yeast, it's nice and bubbly, I'm going to try to make a loaf of bread just using a portion of this, and reserving the rest of it, the remainder, I'm going to reserve in the refrigerator, covered up, and see if I can come back in a day or 2 without feeding it. Now, you know, well, okay, because I don't want it to be like sourdough necessarily. But let's just see if I can make that 1 yeast packet stretch. So, here we go. Now, keep in mind, I'm no expert. I wouldn't claim to be an expert. But let's see what we can do. Now, I'm going to set this to the side. Got my bowl here. And in this bowl, I'm just going to make enough for 1 loaf of bread. So, I'm going to put in 3 cups of flour. And this is just unbleached all-purpose flour. And I'm going to put in some salt, because salt makes food taste good. And I'm going to mix that up. Make myself a little well there. I'm going to add in 1.5 cups of water. Let me get that going. If I need to add more water, I will. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of my yeast mixture. I'm going to give this a little stir. Smells very yeasty. I'm going to put in 2. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to put in 4 tablespoons. That would make 1/4 cup. Remember, I started with 1 cup of fluid or water. And I'm going to add a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil. Depends on how much I have in the little cruet here. Awesome. Now then, let me set this aside. Put my lid on my flour so I don't spill it. Okay. And I'm going to mix this up. Now I'm going to set this yeast mixture aside, and I'm going to put the saucer back on top. I'll just cover it up with foil or some other covering. I may just put a saucer over the top of it in the refrigerator because I really don't have a lid. For some reason or other, those lids, the Pyrex lids, get brittle over time, and they begin to crack, and then they fall apart, and they're kind of pretty useless. All right. Well, that mixed up pretty good. Grab a knife here. Well, let's skip the knife. Just grab this. Some of my utensils look so very, very sad. Very sad. Now, normally, if I was going to make a loaf or 2 of bread, I'd just throw the yeast packet in there and, you know, do that. But I just thought, you know, I wonder if I can make it stretch, because sometimes you don't know if there's going to be a shortage of things like baking supplies, which includes yeast. Now, I'm going to dump this out on my floured countertop here, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a knead. Okay. I hope this works. If it doesn't, we'll have flatbread. Because I'm not throwing it away, no matter how it turns out. All right. Feels kind of nice and elastic. I'm just going to knead this until it gets a little bit smooth. It's still sticky. There's so many different ways to make bread. Now the trick is going to be, if I come back in a day or 2 and make another loaf. Let's see what happens. And I can always put these in the freezer. So these are pretty simple ingredients, as you can see. Pretty good. A little more flour, I think. Now then, hopefully there's a little more oil left in this cruet here, and I'm going to spread some oil around in this pan. Just a little bit. Then I'm going to put the dough in the bowl. Put the dough in the bowl. Mother! Okay, it feels nice. It's a little bit springy, which we're looking for. Okay. All right, so let's see. Let's see how we're going to do this. Now, I'm going to turn my oven light on. I'm not going to turn my oven on. I'm going to turn my oven light on. I'm going to cover this with a clean towel. I'm going to set this inside of the oven until hopefully it'll be doubled in size. That's the goal. So, okay, which I don't know how long that's going to take. Hour, 2 hours, I have no clue. But certainly I have other things that I can do around the house, and so therefore it'll take however long it takes. Yep, so don't be asking, are we there yet? Because we won't be there yet. Okay? All right. I'll be back when it's doubled, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, let's see what we've got. It's been a couple of hours. Oh, that looks pretty good. Come a little closer so you can see. Come a little bit closer. Yep. Okay. That did pretty good, I think. Awesome. Yay! Okay. Now I'm going to turn it out on a floured surface, and we're going to knead it a little bit. And then we're going to shape it into a loaf. And I have my prepared cast iron loaf pan here. And I've already greased it. So it'll be all ready to go. Now, I think I should get the air bubbles out. That did really, really well. What do we got here? That was very blurry. All right, let's get the air bubbles out. This dough is still a little bit sticky. That's all right, because we're going to work with it. I don't mind. Get this up here. There we go. Make sure I have plenty of flour on the surface. Give it a good knead. This is very nice dough. It's soft. It's elastic. It's not too sticky. I think it's okay. Now the trick is going to be, with my leftover yeast mixture, will I be able to get more bread out of it? Or even rolls? We shall see. More flour there, I think. I find kneading dough is very, very soothing. Have you tried it? If you've never tried it, you should. it's like, for me, chopping vegetables is very soothing. It's almost like a meditative quality about it. I don't really know why, it just is. Alright, let's see what we got here. I'm going to, little seam there, I'm going to pinch that. I don't get too fussy when it comes to this. Got my pan here. I'm going to lay the loaf in there. I saw this recently, and I'm going to, this particular thing, I'm going to grab a fork real quick. I'm going to stab it with a fork. Now, I saw this on White Cottage Company, and she said they do this to take out the bubbles. So I'm thinking, okay, that could work. So there's no holes in the bread. What do you think of that? I think I'm going to take a little butter and I'm going to brush the top with some butter. This butter is not melted. It's just on the little brush. Because I'm too lazy to do all that other stuff. Alright. Now, I'm going to cover this with that same towel. I'm going to put it back in the oven with only the oven light on, remember. I'm not turning the oven on. And I'm going to leave it in there until it is actually starts to crown above the, right till it gets to the top of the edge of the pan. Okay? So, let's see what happens. It looks pretty good so far. I'm liking it. But like I said, the trick is going to be next time. Now then, I find it fascinating that all I did was use the yeast mixture and not the whole yeast packet. I think that is very good. And if I can make my yeast stretch a little bit, that would be great. Because you never know, sometimes hard times are coming. Yep. Alright, in the oven it goes. It's just the oven light on until it's risen appropriately. Okie dokie, 2 hours later. This is the exciting part. Well, it's always the exciting part, for me anyway. There's our bread. It looks pretty good, doesn't it? Yes, yes. Okay. I don't want to be too loud because, you know, it's delicate. All right. I'm going to preheat my oven to 350 degrees. And I'm going to put this in for about 40 minutes or until it sounds hollow when tapped. And hopefully the butter that's on the top will brown it off nicely, and it will not only taste delicious, but it will look delicious as well. Okay, so it's going in the oven, preheated 350 degrees for about 40 minutes. Look at that. I'm very happy. Very, very happy. Now, I'll show you how I know it's done. Hear that? It's got a nice hollow ring to it. Now, I'm going to let it sit in the pan for about 10 minutes, and I'm going to keep it on this wire rack. I'm going to get some butter, and I'm going to rub some butter on the crust. I'm going to let that melt on the crust. What that does is it makes the crust nice and soft. Way, way, way back in the day when my mom baked bread, this is what she did. She always rubbed some butter on the top, and it just made the crust nice and soft. See? So I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes, and then I will take the bread out of the pan in 10 minutes. I don't want to interrupt the bread too soon because it might cause it to deflate a bit, and I want it to look party. Now, you may be wondering why I don't take the bread out right away. The number one reason is because it's kind of in a delicate condition, and I don't want to cause it to deflate. And the reason why I don't leave it in any longer than about 10 minutes or so is because if you just let the bread sit in the pan until it's cooled off, then moisture is going to form between the bread and your pan, and your bread might start to get a little soggy. So you definitely don't want to take it out too soon, and you don't want to leave it in too long. All right, let's see. Oh, look. That is awesome. All right. There it is. I'm pretty happy with this, I have to tell you. Now then, next time, keep an eye out for part 2 of this little experiment, because in a few days, probably at least 2 days, maybe 3, I will make another loaf of bread using the exact same method with the yeast. I'm going to call it slurry, with the yeast slurry that I have left. Let me grab that for you, and I'll show you how I'm storing it. I just put it in a mason jar and put a lid on it. So that's what it looks like, and it's in the refrigerator. Now I think what I'm going to do when I make the next loaf of bread, and remember I started out with a cup of water, and I used 4 tablespoons of the slurry to make this bread. So I'm going to, what I'll probably do, I'm thinking I will set this out maybe the night before I'm going to make the bread, actually. Loosen the lid on it and let it proof again, and then use it again. I'm not going to feed it or anything. I'm going to try not to do that, because then essentially what you have is like, I don't know, almost like a sourdough mixture. So, all right, keep an eye out for part 2, and we will see what happens. In the meantime, I'm going to enjoy this beautiful, magnificent bread. I baked bread a few days ago, and I shared part of it with my neighbor because it was a long loaf, and so I finished that loaf actually just today. I finished it. So now I have this beautiful loaf to start in again. It smells divine, by the way. All right, listen. If I can do it, you can do it. You know that you can. Really, you can. And just know this. I love you guys very much. And as always, little is much when God is in it. Okay? All right. Love ya. And I'm going to talk to you later. And stay tuned for part 2.